It's California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. We're coming to you from Sacramento, the state's capital, and we are joined by the Superintendent of Public Instruction. His name is Tom Torlakson. He's running for re-election. That election will be held in November, and I thank you for joining us. And boy, what a difference a year or two makes in terms of K-12 funding. Talk to us about the recently signed budget and what it's doing for our kids.
Well, it's a fabulous budget. The governor led with a very strong budget prioritizing education, higher education, and K-12 education. We're seeing $5 billion new money coming into the schools to rebuild a lot of the programs that were dismantled and to invest in new innovative programs that are going to engage our kids.
I want to ask you about those priorities, though, because I think it's fair to say that when you look at K-12, it is undeniable that the governor has a sweet spot for K-12. Funding restorations, quite dramatic. 13-14, sure, some funding restorations. UC-CSU, sure, some, but nothing like K-12. Is that problematic to you, or you got to make priorities somewhere?
Well, Prop 98, the voters enacted Prop 98, directs money towards the K-12 system, and so that's partly why it's receiving such a high priority. But you need to have the seats and the capacity at higher education. You're telling students, stay the course, be eligible to go to college, and then are there seats there? Can you take your courses? Can you get done in 4 years, or you'd have to take 5 years? But we are investing in one other part of the budget in career education, which involves the community colleges and universities, connecting our kids to employers, to real-world work experience. It's fabulous how this is working.
Prop 98, completely understand the mandates of it. I'm just wondering, even in light of Prop 98, is it fair that K-12 is being so preferred vis-a-vis other educational portions of our state, vis-a-vis everything else in the state? I mean, I know I'm speaking to a partisan on education, but still, I mean, I think it's a valid question.
We need to invest in the whole continuum. And the other good thing about the budget is it invests in early learning in preschools. But the whole continuum must include a strong university system, a strong community college system.
Let me ask you about pre-K. The leaders in the state legislature at the time, Darrell Steinberg and John Perez, were very strong in pushing what's known as a TK program, transitional kindergarten. Would have created a new year, I guess, is what you would say, for our students. Part of the reason, as I understand, is because the deadline with which students could start kindergarten was pushed, and so there were some kids in kind of this middle station. In the end, the TK program did not advance. I guess there is some money for additional preschool slots, but not universal TK. Your thoughts on that, sir?
Well, I do believe that we've ended in a good place. The debate was important. Early learning makes a huge difference. Students who come to kindergarten a year and a half behind, their vocabulary maybe only one half the vocabulary of other students from more fortunate neighborhoods. So the debate was a good one. It ended up with $255 million supporting 27,000 additional preschool and child care seats. So it doesn't get to all 4-year-olds. Pre-K, as we know it, gets to a quarter of the 4-year-olds, but it will eventually, in a year or two time, this budget and say another installment next year, get us towards bringing those 4-year-olds into a school setting so they have a chance to learn, interact socially, and be ready for kindergarten.
So are we looking toward universal TK? Is that how
I think
you call
we should say we're looking forward to universal early learning, universal education for 4-year-olds and reach down eventually to 3-year-olds.
How will that happen? Do we need the state funding? Is it that simple?
Yes, you need funding, and this is good. The governor and the legislature prioritized these funds for early learning, and it's a commitment to go on in a multi-year phase.
When we come back, I want to speak more about the future of education, the LCFF, the LCAP, district caps, what if you want to call it that. For our viewers on HLN, thanks for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back. So, sir, let's talk about this year. What a year it was. We had the implementation of the local control funding formula. We saw the local control accountability plan implemented with the stakeholders being addressed and they're giving their feedback. Tell me about this year. What a year.
It's an exciting year for education. Very strong transformation. Reforms are taking place, engaging students more. Just the Common Core, we've talked about that before. Hands-on learning, critical thinking, problem solving, the skills employers want and colleges want. And then the local control funding formula is shifting billions of dollars to students who have the greatest needs, so we can make sure that all students in California succeed, and graduate. We've now reached the highest graduation rate in the state's history, 80%. So we're moving in the right direction. And finally, the local control funding formula says you also need the local community, parents and taxpayers and businesses to be involved in setting the budget, local control.
And I want to ask you about that. I know you are the superintendent for the entire state, so my guess is you may not have had the chance to go to these LCAP meetings. But that being said, my guess is you probably did get some feedback on what parents were saying, what PTAs were saying, what stakeholders were saying at these LCAP meetings. Was there a theme? Did you have a sense that from Ukiah to San Diego, what were they saying?
Well, I visited one in San Diego where the parents were working right side by side with administrators and other community
so you
leaders.
did get to go to LCAP.
Yes,
terrific.
I saw it. It was just a fabulous process of engagement, of genuine, what are your ideas? And so students, parents want their students to have skills. They want them to be career ready. They like career education. They like after school programs where students can be safe. They like summer schools, which were dismantled during the budget crisis. Summer schools practically disappeared. And now we can restore those, and we know that helps continue the learning momentum of students, particularly low-income students.
Were you aware of any distinctions that you could make? You know, individuals on the Central Coast were more interested in X, whereas in North State more interested in Y, or was the theme pretty universal throughout?
I think the theme was looking at what are the kinds of investments you could make in programs that would help students succeed, graduate from high school, go on and be proficient in their reading and so forth. It's too early to know the trends because the deadline is June 30th to have all these plans submitted. But the good news is up and down the state, parents were involved, parents were invited to be involved. Some places stronger than others, and we're going to have best practices and post those so we can make sure that all 1,100 school districts really do a good job getting parents involved.
Will we get an analysis of all the data that comes through pursuant to the June 30 deadline?
We'll get an analysis of
the themes and
sort of unpack the individual plans and look at trends. We will be doing that.
I want to ask you about school districts. As you know, the state does set a certain standard whereby school districts must keep a certain amount of money in reserve. And for many districts, that was a big savior during this last recession.
Absolutely.
Interestingly, through the legislature in this cycle, the reserve cap was decreased. Some confusion as to why the reserve cap would be decreased. What can you tell us about that?
Well, there was a proposal that went through in a trailer bill. I did not support it. I thought it should have been left to the local districts to define what a prudent reserve is. Under the local control funding formula, I believe that makes sense to have the district superintendents and school boards decide what is it. They know their local finances. They know the economy in the area. Some parts of the state are recovering. Some parts are still in a deep recession and high unemployment. So I feel that that kind of decision should have been left to the locals.
And as I understand it, the reason that this bill marched through, it was the desire of certain teacher organizations to have more cash available for salaries and such, and if you have a higher reserve, you have less cash available. So I understand we love our teachers, but you know, especially what happened during this last recession where the caps or the reserve saved some school districts.
Many districts would have been on the brink had they not had the reserves in place. So again, I spoke to a number of county administrators just yesterday who were involved in overseeing the local districts' budgets, and they too objected to this new provision. So
it passed, but to say, I've spoken with some local school board members, they are apoplectic. I mean, they are not happy. Is this the end of it, or do you think there's going to be some noise surrounding this issue?
There may be some additional actions taken on this issue. It's not predicted to kick into effect anytime soon, maybe 20 years out. But nonetheless, the fact that it sort of violated the idea of the local control, local school boards and superintendents.
Yeah. He is Tom Torlakson. He is the Superintendent of Public Instruction in the great state of California. I'm Brad Pomerance, and that's California Edition.
Great. So you're all set. Thanks for choosing Charter.
Welcome to the Charter Call Center, where customers are getting questions answered faster than ever. Charter customer satisfaction is at an all-time high. When you add the best products, on-time appointments, and a reliable network, all supported by a money-back guarantee, it's no wonder Charter customers have never been happier.
Another satisfied customer.
Switch to Charter and see why thousands choose us every day.